initially, when Doge was first running through the federal government, there were some of these false reports, like a bunch of houses flooded and went on the market. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, when people lose their job, they're not like, all right, let's move. Like, no, we're not going to move our kids out of school immediately. We're going to try to find another job and things like that. And that largely is happening. And especially with how much easier it is to work remotely. Their job might be in another part of the country, but they're still staying in the area. So things are okay, and they're going to be okay.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Local Real Estate Today. I have a really special guest, Brendan McKay. He's out of the DC area, and we're in October of 2025 talking about how local economies can be affected by national decisions. So we know what's going on right now. There's a government shutdown, and I thought it'd be great to have Brendan on our show today to talk about what's happening on the East Coast in that area and how it affects not only people with employment, but all the other indirect or direct outcomes of these stall out government, compromises and negotiations that are now delayed. So Brendan, welcome on our show. Please share with us what's happening and what perspective you have as a trusted mortgage professional in your marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Jen. So my name is Brendan McKay. I own McKay Mortgage, which is in Bethesda, Maryland, which is right on the DC border. And like the DC area is kind of, actual DC, but then Maryland and Virginia as well. So there's a lot going on in this area. Things have shifted drastically, and not just with the shutdown, but with overall the reduction in federal workforce that this administration has been pushing for successfully. So in this area, first of all, it is a very high net worth area, a fantastic economy and a very strong one. But the number one driver of that economy and the number one employer is the federal government. And so what you see is not only a ton of federal employees in this area, but also a lot of businesses that are ancillary to the federal government. So whether it's as A to B as government contractors being deeply impacted, or just a couple more steps removed, even me, right? Like I'm an independent mortgage broker, but I don't know, maybe 15% of my customers are federal employees or government contractors. So like I'm going to see an impact on it as well. And you just see that kind of spread out. And then also there's a lot of nonprofits in the area that rely on federal grants. So they're always going to be close to where the money is. And the federal government is giving out a lot of money in grants to these nonprofits. They're going to be close by, and all their employees are as well. And what else has this administration done? It's pulled back deeply on the amount of grant money that's been put out there. So you've seen a very large impact in not only people possibly losing their employment, but you don't have to lose your job to have an impact on your decision-making process, right? Like previously, a federal employee, like, it was as secure employment as you get. And now, even if you're still there, but it's a little less secure, you might be a little shakier on making that decision. Like, okay, let's buy this house. No problem. I can make the payments for the next 20 years. If you're a little less certain than that, you might be bunkering down and not buying that house or this or that. So we're seeing all of those impacts. I would say, if you're saying specifically from a mortgage perspective, people are more likely to jump on refinances that save them anything on a month-by-month basis because they're tighter. So that's a quick, I'm like trying to leave a little bit for you to ask a follow-up question on it. But
yeah, Yeah, because it's almost like consumer confidence in the economy, right? Like if you don't have confidence, people aren't spending as much. Same thing with employer confidence. I don't know if I'm going to lose my job. I have kids in college. I have kids in daycare. What am I going to do? We have maybe a single or dual income house. It's going to stall big decisions. And that's tough because you already have an anchoring effect with interest rates being low, right? Yep. People are less likely to move because they have a 3-4% rate. And then on top of that, you have even more like real big time hurdles or distractions of like, you might not have a job. Maybe you can't afford your current house, let alone buy a bigger house, if things don't turn around soon. What about like the local businesses? Like you're wearing a nice shirt, like your laundromat, or you get a coffee, like, whatever. Are those businesses being affected? Is it like almost like is it back in like COVID times where it feels like things are shut down and that stuff, or what's happening?
No, definitely not to that degree. And what, like, are they impacted? Probably. Am I noticing it as I'm walking in there? No. And my board meetings at the Chamber of Commerce Are we definitely having conversations about the federal government's impact on the area? Absolutely. But are we having businesses come running to us saying, that they're really struggling like they were during COVID or during other times? No, we are not hearing that. Because like I said, this is a very affluent area. And when, some of these federal employees are losing their jobs, initially, when Doge was first running through the federal government, there were some of these false reports, like a bunch of houses flooded and went on the market. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, when people lose their job, they're not like, all right, let's move. Like, no, we're not going to move our kids out of school immediately. We're going to try to find another job and things like that. And that largely is happening. And especially with how much easier it is to work remotely. Their job might be in another part of the country, but they're still staying in the area. So things are okay, and they're going to be okay. And things will rebound. The federal government's not moving out of the area altogether. And the local governments are very aware of this issue, and they have been aware of their over-reliance on the federal government for quite some time. So some of those things are getting accelerated. Like the area I live in is moving heavily into biotech, which has happened for a while because NIH is here and things like that. So all that stuff is already happening. And I would say if you're somebody who's thinking about buying in this area, it might actually be an opportunity because it is moved from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and even last year, it was like a lot of other places in the country. A house would go on the market and there were 15 offers on it and it'd be off immediately, no contingencies. Those days are over. It is, you could argue it is neutral. You could argue it's actually a buyer's market in this area right now. If the house is priced aggressively, it will still move very quickly. But you're seeing houses sit a little bit more. And I'm seeing seller consent. I even have a couple transactions with home sale contingencies right now, which is unheard of.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's a really tough. That's interesting. So, are you seeing the softening is creating opportunities for sellers to give credits to buyers, to longer escrows, and then got it because that's we're in a good environment too for rates, right? They've dropped about 0.5% in the last 30 days. And that's a really good thing for homeowners that are looking to buy, right? They are, or I should say, first-time home buyers looking to buy, because that buying power just went up by like 6 or 7%, every 0.5% lower rate. And that's a powerful thing for these people. And so does it feel like it's going to be a busier seasonality this year than previous years? Do you think the market gets warmer as buyers wake up to lower rates? Do you think it's going to be flat because of the other local, employment issues or concerns? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I expect it to keep trugging along in like a steady, healthy manner, which I would describe right now. We do have the issue of, unlike where you're at in California, or at least where I think you're at, seasonal stuff matters when it comes to home buying. So we're entering winter, and when there's, when it's colder than hell and there's snow on the ground, it's always going to slow down a little bit. And we also, like spring market stuff, people waiting to move when their kids are out of school and stuff like that is a very real thing in this area. So I expect, things to be steady and then pop again come next spring and stuff like that. But that's largely my expectation. But like you mentioned, first time home buyers, they're less likely to have children. Certainly plenty of them do, don't get me wrong, but like less likely to, and they're going to care less about that kind of stuff. So I think they're going to jump on a lot of opportunities between things being a little bit more of a buyer's market, but also some of the seasonality stuff I mentioned. Like some people are just going to need to sell their house in the dead of winter. And a first time home buyer is going to have no issue making a move at that time. So I do expect to see some of that kind of stuff. I don't expect I think a lot of the bleeding, because you mentioned the shutdown, which definitely matters, but a lot of the other stuff I've mentioned has a much larger impact on some of this. And I think we're through the worst of it when it comes to just mass firings and layoffs at the federal government and stuff like that. I've heard actually quietly that some agencies are rehiring people, not during the shutdown, of course, but otherwise. So I think things are going to stabilize a little bit and be nice and steady, which is fine.
Great. Awesome. And then you're like the number one VA lender in all of Maryland, I believe, right? So I love that you have a passion about helping people that are protecting our country from, other countries and all that stuff. Tell me your favorite part about helping a VA, a veteran, which might be a military family, might be someone who's retired veteran or their kids or whatever. Like, give me a story that you love to share about why you are helping people in your community with home ownership.
So I've countless stories, and I love it for a million reasons. I think that veterans and active duty service members are people that deserve our help and expertise more than anyone else does. Everyone deserves it. They deserve it even more. And I think our industry fails them pretty regularly. I think I'm as patriotic as the next person. I think the main reason that I do as many VA loans as I do is that I give a shit. And are like, anyways, and don't do all these things that others might. My favorite story though, was from probably 7 years ago. A borrower of mine named Clayton, unbelievable dude. And this is my favorite classification of client period is older first time home buyers. And he fit that. He was also a 20-year Army veteran that felt that he would never become a homeowner. He thought it was over, and he was making the call to me because someone bugged him, and he's like, "Okay, I'm going to get the same answer." He didn't have a credit score, and he thought it wasn't possible. And within a month, we had him a credit score, no problem. Got him to a 720, had him under contract 60 days later, and he became a homeowner with fantastic VA terms, and he cried at the closing table. And I cried too when he started crying, and it was unbelievable. And he was 60 years old. He thought it would never happen. And I don't want to say we made it happen. He made it happen. But we helped him get there, and I'm incredibly proud of that.
So cool. And that probably makes you excited for the next day, right? You have a tough day, but next day you wake up and you're like, I can help some more people like Clayton, right? I get to find other people to help and help them get to their goals, their dreams. And, that's powerful, man. I really appreciate you and who you are. And if you're a realtor out there in the markets that Brendan's in, like, you should be using Brendan and his team. They're the best in the whole area out there. And I can't thank you enough for insights. And I'm looking forward to hanging out with you more often when we're at these events and getting to know you better. And I can't thank you enough for being a leader, not only in your marketplace, but helping us throughout the country get better education to the audience to make sure that they're making good choices with things. And can't thank you enough, man. And if people want to find you, where would they find you? Tell me where
we actually just redeveloped our website. So I'm any loan officer worth a damn, you should be able to Google their name and mortgage, and it should all come up. But McKayMortgageCo.com is our website. All my info, a bunch of videos and stuff we've done. You'll see the whole amazing team that Jim mentioned on there. And that's the easiest place to find us for sure. Any social media. I'm as accessible as I get. But yeah, thank you for all the kind words, and thank you for having me on, Jim.
Awesome. Well, that's another edition of Local Real Estate Today. Please know, like, and subscribe to our channel. We look forward to bringing more guests like Brendan on throughout the country. And thanks for your time. And Brendan, have a great Halloween. We got one day before. I don't know if it's crazy in your neighborhood, but
we are the neighborhood to go to. We shut the street down. We've got a couple of apartment buildings nearby, and all those kids flooded. We get about 300 kids coming through every.
Wow.
It's awesome. It's so fun.
Oh, awesome, man. We'll have a great Halloween. Thank you again for your time. Appreciate it.
Later. Bye.
Take care.